Do you think drugs or any type of mind-altering substances contributed to the creation of any of these?
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm pretty convinced of it, actually. There's lots of use for particularly DMT in the ancient world. I mean, the blue lotus flower is one that's represented in all the artwork. I mean, you literally see images of it's like a smoking pipe almost. It's like, and you're getting showered with knowledge, power and stability, or life, power and stability from the gods, and some of those things. It looks to me like smoking pipes. The blue lotus flower is full of DMT. The acacia trees, that's got DMT in it. You see, I think there's some of those visions in those altered states, some of that geometry and things are represented in some of the artwork. There's been mummies found with cocaine from South America, like in the linen.
From South America?
South America, go figure.
Yeah, there's some trade, right? They're probably trading
They're trading
stuff.
Cocaine from South America?
Potentially. There's definitely been mummies found with
Wait.
coca.
Mummies in Egypt?
Yes.
Found with South American coke?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't explain it.
But does no one else want to explain this? Why are you the only one that's like, we got to talk about the mummies doing blow? Like, that's crazy.
They've got boomerangs in ancient Egypt. The name for them literally translates to foreigner's weapon. Like, they're in the museum. You can
That's
go
not
find
as cool as coke being exported.
This is true.
Yeah, but he's
When did they find the
Australian,
coke?
you know.
I'm not sure on the details. You'd have to look at, if you look up mummy cocaine, you probably find the details. But
Yeah, let's look that up, please. Can I ask you, while he looks that up, what are your thoughts on climate change? Because this could theoretically, a lot of what we believe is climate change could just be, you know, younger dryas type things.
I think that if you want to understand climate change, you probably need to widen your scope of view a little bit and look back a little bit further than the last century or two, is what I would say, because in a lot of ways, to me, the modern climate change discussion is, and to borrow an analogy from my friend George Howard, it's like we're sitting in a car arguing about the radio station and what channel we're listening to, but we're ignoring the fact that the car's sitting on a railway track and the train's coming. We've got bigger problems. I think, and if we burn...
Wait a minute, what do you know? You know some shit.
Well...
Is there a comet coming?
No, I don't know. I don't know. On a long enough timescale, 100%. It depends on what that timescale is.
I think he's just saying we are in this cosmic shooting gallery.
Yeah,
it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
And it's, look, if we burnt every last ounce of fossil fuel and the end result of that was that we averted the next cosmic impact, then karmic debt paid.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing like the climate change that is a result and the pollution of a cosmic impact like that.
Yeah.
Like, you want nuclear winter? Like, that's what it is. Like, it blocks out the sun for hundreds of years. Everything on Earth dies. You know, you can't breathe outside. Like, the half of the world is on fire kind of thing. Like, it's apocalyptic. And the words, that's what it means.
And
like,
that's not speculative. Like,
No,
I
it's
remember,
happened.
yeah, you were telling me that, like, there's a piece of the bedrock that you could see that was on fire, or the remnants of the fire, and this exists throughout the Earth.
There's like a black mat layer at that younger dryas boundary layer in the soil, in the strata. There is an organic, it's like a soot layer almost, where it's, and the calculations of something like 9% of the organic matter on the planet was on fire, which is
At one time.
It's an astronomical amount of...
It's just an ash layer in the bedrock.
It's literally, yes, it's fallout from the fires. Yeah.
Insane.
It was either flood or fire. Like, you look at every ancient culture, it's flood or fire. Like, it's either cataclysmic fire or it's world-ending floods. Like,
Kind of makes you feel lucky, huh?
yeah, well, that's the thing. You know, people complain about it, but honestly, our climate has been the most stable. We've had the best climate in the last sort of 10,000 years that we've had for almost 200,000 years, like on the planet. So when you talk about modern climate change and we're arguing about CO2 and like 1/10 of a degree, I don't care. I mean, it's fine. Look, that's not to say pollution, bad. Treat the planet good, yes. Like, let's clean up our act, do all that stuff. But
we have bigger problems.
reality is also CO2 is not a problem. More CO2 is good. The planet nearly went into plant death in the Little Ice Age. The warmth is great. We've been far warmer and had far more CO2 in our history on this planet and supported megafauna and megaflora, the likes of which don't exist at all anymore.
It's when it gets cold.
Cold is the problem. Small cold periods associated. Guess when the the Black Plague was. It was a cold period. All of the downturns.
Oh, because the heat is going to burn off a lot of the bacteria.
Well, cold periods are associated with famine and less plant growth, which means your immune systems are weaker. You don't eat as much, and all the stuff happens.
Bacteria can't grow in cold, and then we're very much like bacteria in that way.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're the ones that...
I was thinking it was going to get burned off in the heat, but you're right. That makes sense. And also just the weakness of the body. If there's no
famine,
winters are just rough in general.
Yeah, cold's bad, and cold is worse than getting warmer. Like this whole planet's on fire is nonsense. Like it's fine. In fact, the planet is greening. Like you've seen the evidence for this. Like the planet's actually greening due to the slight increase in CO2. And CO2 is not a pollutant. We shouldn't be demonizing CO2. It's fine. Like I said, in the past, we've had many times the number of CO2 that we have today. It's not a big deal. We've never had a runaway climate. The climate on this planet's very stable. Even when things like cosmic impacts happen, it recovers. Like it's a very stable system.
And just to clarify, so you don't get yelled at, that's not to say there's no problem with pollution. There are other problems, but it's not necessarily what we think it is.
I hate having to preface that all the time by saying, well, if you somehow question any of the narrative, it's like, you're pro-pollution. Like, of course, pollution's bad. Let's clean up our act. Let's keep the oceans clean.
Two things can be true.
All these things. Let's behave like responsible stewards of the planet,
but if polluting was making it colder,
let's not tax everyone.
That's a bigger problem.
That's a bigger issue.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it'd be a bigger problem too. It would be. Cold is bad. Cold is bad.
What'd you find here,
So
Mark?
this is a German toxicologist basically did a study on the hair of a priestess that they uncovered.
Coca.
And they basically found traces of nicotine and cocaine, which had been considered to be cocoa and tobacco plants native to the Americas that were not thought of to have been brought to Africa until after Columbus's voyage.
Well, I do think that we don't give the dynastic Egyptians enough credit for what they did. I think they were probably much wider ranging. I mean, they had bigger boats than the Vikings, and we know the Vikings got around a lot of places.
Do we know that I thought we haven't found any boats from the Egyptians.
We've found plenty of boats. They're mostly river boats, though. They wouldn't last a sea voyage. That said, you can go to places like Hatshepsut's temple, and there's literally scenes on the wall of ocean voyages where there's fleets of ships. They're even drawn underneath. There's like ocean creatures that you don't get in the Nile. Like, they talk about an expedition to what they called Buntland to go and get stuff at one point. There's a place in Australia called the Gosford Glyphs that I happen to think is probably a result of a shipwrecked, like Ptolemaic period Egyptian crew. There's these glyphs in this place in Australia in this little cave. They think it's a hoax. It's not a hoax.
Wait, go to this.
Gosford Glyphs, yeah.
Gosford Glyphs.
Yeah, Gosford Glyphs.
And you're saying that the Egyptians reached Australia.
Yeah. Well, it's on their maps too. They literally show like horses in America, and they show.
This is dynastic Egyptians.
Yeah. Ptolemaic period, like late period, Greek-Roman period. That's the matches the glyphs that they did. They look poor because the story that it tells, we had some of it translated, was the scribe and the captain died. I think one of them died of a snake bite. They were shipwrecked. So this is the results. The carving are the results of a guy that could probably read Egyptian but wasn't a stone carver. It's like you can probably read and write on paper, but try carving it into sandstone, see how far you get. But anyway, so they've known about this, literally the thumbnail for my video about it. They've known about this since the 1970s. The modern dogma on it, I guess, is say, well, it's a hoax. Some guy came back from the war and was like, oh, I was in Egypt, so I'm just going to draw some random collection of hieroglyphs on the wall. Turns out that's not the case. It actually tells a story. It's coherent. What's even crazier is there are symbols on this wall that we didn't decipher until like the year 2000. So they weren't in Egyptian dictionaries until the year 2000, yet they're still on this wall and been there since the 1970s, and they still want to call it a fake. I'm like, what's so hard to believe? These guys were seafarers. Maybe they just got a whole bunch of storms blew them halfway across the Pacific, and they got shipwrecked down here. They got looked after by the local Aboriginals. They lived their life. They buried their dead, and they wrote something about it on this wall.
Do we know what the story says?
Yeah, it says that it was the part of it, not all of it's been decoded, but the part of it says that, it was exactly that. It was a crew that got shipwrecked here. One of them died from a snake bite. The captain and the scribe died, and then the locals were looking after them. Like the Aboriginals would look after people. Like it happened a lot with the white explorers too later on.
If you could make a pyramid You can make a boat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like once you subscribe to this idea, what's that?
Sorry, this would be dynastic
It is
Egyptians, and
dynastic
we're not sure dynastic Egyptians built the pyramids.
Right. They did a lot of them. Look, Dynastic Egypt did a lot of amazing stuff. They were, particularly by the end, like the New Kingdom and the Ptolemaic period, they had a lot of capability. They were tremendously wealthy. They built, like Karnak Temple, sure, it's sandstone, but it's spectacular. Like
Can we get
they
that
built
up?
some amazing stuff.
Karnak Temple.
Karnak. You know, they embarked on they were a massive civilization that lasted a long time. I don't want to undersell what they were capable of.
Yeah, we're just comparing them to the goat.
Well, yeah, there's as capable as they were and as magnificent as they were, there's just a few things that are outside of their technological capability. And that one top left there is that red one, top left there.
This one?
Yeah, that's one of them, yeah. So this is like these giant sandstone columns.
That's beautiful.
And that's all dynastic work. All those rams, there's dynastic work. These big pylons and walls are dynastic. There's huge structures. Like the Karnak Temple and Luxor Temple, they're amazing. I think they combine, like a lot of these structures combine both elements. It's like they built a temple on top of an older temple or an older structure that I think does stretch back to, you know, these earlier times with these granite artifacts, the big obelisks and the single-piece statues made from granite that show all these signs of precision. Like,